top of the morning bay with Good Morning Bay.
Get to know about the traffic on your way and what's news around the world today.
Some wisdom skills along the way.
Oh, and a song to hum along with and sway.
Get your perfect entertaining start to the day.
At 9 a.m. every weekday morning with
Mahima's Good Morning
Bay.
Good morning,
Bay.
आप सभी लोग हमारे तरफ से एक प्यार भरा नमस्ते,
Namaskar.
वनकम,
Namaskara.
खुशामदीद,
Assalamu alaikum.
सत श्री अकाल,
మీకు అందరికీ వందనము.
जय स्वामी नारायण,
जय श्री कृष्ण.
जय जिनेंद्र,
हमारे इस्माइली भाई बंधुओं को बोलते हैं याली मदद.
मौला अली मदद बोलते हैं सारे फीजी मंत्र बोलेंगे नीसा बुला बंदजन. हम आ गए हैं आपके प्यारे महिमा के द्वारे myself फालतू बाबा.
And of course, myself, Faltu Rani, लेकर आपके लिए एक और drive time that's going to make it totally exciting and totally मस्तानी बन जाने.
That's right, Bandajan. Of course, we shared with you yesterday the unfortunate events happened in San Jose, Bandajan. In fact, so disturbing. The news are coming out right now. On a somber note, we're starting off today, Bandajan, because we also realized that after they released the news, one of the person who actually was the victim in the particular shooting yesterday, Bandajan, happened to be Mr. Singh, who was of Indian origin, Bandajan, and we'll share more information about that incident, Bandajan, coming up right now. There's a lot of talks about the gun laws and how that's something that has to be made more stricter in San Jose. Is coming up right now. We'll talk about all those things and news updates for you guys. लेकिन अभी के लिए a quick look at what's happening on the roads. रस्ते का हाल आपको लीजिए पेश है सस्ते में.
It's time for the Bandu traffic update. Call us from wherever you are.
Right now, रस्ते का हाल आपके लिए
2479.
total सस्ते में.
It's time for the Bandu traffic update. Call us from wherever you are at 408-912-2479.
So, Banjan, let me tell you, people actually are traveling, I suppose, today because if you look at it, the 880, of course, kind of backed up right now. A little bit of traffic over there. Incidents to report. There's an hazard reported on 580 westbound at 24 in Oakland. And then, of course, Pittsburgh, there's a traffic accident over there. Traffic is looking kind of, heavy towards Mountain House because of an accident on 580 westbound near the Grant Line Road. As you guys know, but that's one particular road or that particular area where you don't have any bypass lanes, so you will be stuck in traffic, very bad traffic as of now. High wind advisory is in effect in the Mountain House area on 580, watch out for that. And speaking about high winds, 92 also is reporting high winds over there, so watch out for that. It's going to be a hot day, it's going to be windy, so it's a killer combination for wildfires and everything, so watch out and be very cautious while you're actually going to be firing at the barbecue, Banjan, because we still, have this drought going on and then this hot air, all the coming up and dry vegetation. It's like an invitation for fire. So watch out and be very careful about that, Banjan. That's all we have, the traffic update for you guys. But let's go see what's happening with the news headlines for you, with local news, national news. Faltwani, what's happening?
Well, locally, of course, there's a lot of talk about what's going on with regard to the shooting at the VTA yesterday, Bandajan. Some of the updates that we're getting is that here's what we know about the VTA mass shooting victims, right? As Alto Baba pointed out, one of the victims was a 36-year-old resident of Union City, Taptej Deep Singh, who was killed. Paul De La Cruz Mejia, Adrian Beleza, all people ranging between the ages of early 30s and up to early 60s. That's based on what the report is from the Santa Clara County Office of the Medical Examiner, Bandajan. In fact, there is if you want to support these victims' families, there is a fund that has been set up to help the victims of the shooting. Working Partnerships USA is a fund where they've set up, and also the San Jose District Attorney Jeff Rosen's office also is doing something to. They have a fund, I think, that they've started. Now, with regard to what exactly happened there, apparently there were signs that this gunman had earlier talked about workplace attacks. This employee who opened fire yesterday at the California rail yard, killing 8 people before taking his own life, as law enforcement authorities rushed in, authorities said, marked the latest attack in a year that has seen a sharp increase in mass killings as the nation emerges from the coronavirus restrictions. The shooting took place around 6:30 a.m. in 2 buildings that are part of the light rail facility for the VTA, which provides bus, light rail, and other transit services throughout Santa Clara County, the most populated county in the San Francisco Bay Area. The facility in San Jose includes a transit control center, parking for trains, and a maintenance yard. So, Santa Clara County Sheriff Laurie Smith said when deputies went through the door, initially he was still apparently firing rounds. And when the deputy saw him, he just decided that, since he was still firing rounds, he's going to take his life. Deputies were going through the hallway saying sheriff's office, sheriff's office. He knew that at that time, his time for firing shots was over. His ex-wife, in fact, said, Cecilia Nelms, she actually said that Cassidy, who was the shooter, had a bad temper and would tell her that he wanted to kill people at work. But she never believed him, and she never thought it would happen. In fact, she got the divorce based on his anger and his temper. And until this happened, and she was completely shaken by the news, she says, and she said that her ex-husband would come home all wound up and angry about things that are happening at work, and as he talked about it, he would get more mad, and he had a tendency to ruminate and dwell on things, is what they're saying. In terms of other news from the Bay Area, what should you be aware of now, people, especially the commuters who use the VTA system? What should you know? Well, Santa Clara VTA light rail service was suspended system-wide as of noon yesterday after a mass shooting at the agency's rail maintenance yard in San Jose. Bus bridges have been set up along light rail routes, according to VTA officials, and the transit agency is asking commuters to plan their trips via regular buses if possible. The bus bridges were scheduled to start running as early as when the first light rail route usually begins at 5 a.m. So they're also asking riders to be patient as officials work out all the logistics to get the extra buses available for the bridges. And if you have questions, Manager, you can contact the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority customer service line at 408-321-2300. Again, 408-321-2300 is the number for you to call to get more information about alternate arrangements that are being made with regard to the bus rail routes. The National Weather Service is warning of higher temperatures. The National Weather Service is warning people, especially the elderly and anyone with heat sensitivity, to be very cautious on Monday and Tuesday as temperatures are expected to be well above normal. The forecast is for temperatures reaching the upper 80s and 90s, possibly hundreds, in North and East Bay Valleys and mountains, South Bay, Santa Cruz Mountains, interior Monterey County, San Benito, and elsewhere it'll be cooler but still well above normal. Temperatures are expected Monday and Tuesday to be in the 70s and 80s along the shoreline of San Francisco Bay and up to the mid-70s along Sonoma and the Marin Coast, San Mateo Coast, and the Monterey Bay shoreline. They explained that a ridge of high pressure will begin to build over the eastern Pacific on Sunday, leading to warm to hot temperatures throughout the area Memorial Day into the middle of next week. So that's something to watch out for. In news from across the United States, Bandujan, the United States opens a criminal probe into alleged lapses at the Eli Lilly plant. The U.S. Justice Department has launched a criminal investigation into Eli Lilly and Company focused on alleged manufacturing irregularities and records tampering at a factory in Branchburg, New Jersey that produces the pharmaceutical giant's COVID-19 therapy and other drugs, 3 people familiar with the matter said. The probe represents a significant escalation of the government scrutiny on Eli Lilly, and the pharmaceutical company, one of the largest in the world, has been under examination for more than a year by the US FDA over alleged manufacturing and records violations at the Branchburg factory. For those of you who are planning to drive over the Memorial Day weekend, you're going to get hit with soaring gasoline prices. Yes, US motorists are going to be seeing the highest gasoline prices in 7 years when they hit the roads this Memorial Day weekend, the traditional start of the summer driving season, as fuel demand surges alongside coronavirus vaccination rates. Retail gasoline prices are at about 3.04 a gallon on average nationwide, the most expensive since 2014. Data from the American Automobile Association has said. And after a year of lockdowns to curb the coronavirus pandemic, tens of millions of American road trippers are expected to be stung by those prices. More than 34 million Americans are expected to take to the highways between May 27th and May 31st. AAA expects an increase of 53% from last year, but still down 10% from 2019.
You know, I don't understand this. Bay Area actually has traditionally a very high thing for gasoline price. We actually end up spending on 4 point something.
Yeah.
4.24.
Indeed.
Yeah, and this seems like, what, really? We didn't even know this.
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine that.
No, dude, it wasn't so bad.
It wasn't so bad.
It wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
It was like 368, 372.
Correct,
kind of
but
thing.
for the past 2 weeks, we have been seeing rates of around 4 point something, right?
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is, I think if the national average is the state average is going down 3.5, you can imagine. I think we're going to hit like $5 per gallon.
No! Oh my God.
I hope not.
Well, and the Republicans are looking to boost infrastructure counter offer. Remember, Biden gave that 2 point something trillion dollar package for infrastructure. Well, these guys are coming back and saying, let's do it at $928 billion.
What? Really? Seriously? What is this bargaining like, vegetable bargaining?
Yeah,
These guys are horrible.
Yeah.
It's supposed to benefit people.
Apparently, they unveiled a new infrastructure offer on Thursday that would spend $928 billion over 8 years to revitalize America's roads, bridges, and broadband systems, but still falls well short of Joe Biden's last proposal. The plan from a group of 6 Republicans, led by Senator Shelley Moore Capito, represents their counter offer to a week-old $1.7 trillion White House proposal that removed more than $500 billion from Biden's original $2.25 trillion plan in a bid to reach a bipartisan agreement. Capito said the offer delivers on the outline of a prospective infrastructure deal that Biden laid out during a May 13th meeting at the White House, where Republicans say he mentioned spending $1 trillion over 8 years. And what is in Biden's budget, Bandajan? That the first full budget will be unveiled tomorrow, setting the stage for a pitched battle with Republicans opposed to his plans to spend trillions on infrastructure, childcare, and public works. What do you need to watch out for? It's a huge list, but some of the things that are there on his wish list of this particular thing are with regard to Israel. There is some funding there, student loans, and growing deficits. Those are things that you need to watch out for. And also from foreign aid to immigration and policing, and there could be jumps in funding for Medicaid and other social programs that consume most federal government spending, including his already announced hopes to pass new bills worth over $4 trillion over 10 years, as well as $1.9 trillion in the deficit fuel stimulus already passed. Biden's budget is expected to reflect soaring spending and a larger debt in an attempt to make an economic recovery. The US weekly job claims, on the other hand, hit fresh 14-month lows as the economic recovery gained steam. That is another news item that's coming out. The economy, which in the first quarter notched its second fastest growth pace since the third quarter of 2003, is gathering momentum, with other data on Thursday showing business spending on equipment accelerated in April. Activity is being boosted by the COVID-19 pandemic's easing grip and nearly $6 trillion in relief provided by the government over the past year. That was the news from across the United States, and here locally in the Bay Area. We will come to you with world news shortly, Bandajan, but before that, here is a quick listen of our Gane Ka Kida.
And of course, Gane Kida is a beautiful song picked for you guys from the movie Hitchki. हमने इसके बारे में बात किया था when we talked a little bit about this particular movie, and also the fact that this movie, one thing is worth watching, and second thing is a master stroke by Rani Mukherjee.
खोज ले अब तू अपने दम पर भूख मार के धूल झाड़ ले छोड़ छाड़ के सारे छप्पर हट समंदर अपना अंबर खोज ले अब तू अपने दम पर भूख मार के धूल झाड़ ले छोड़ छाड़ के सारे छप्पर खोल दे पर 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 खोल दे पर
And of course, Bhajan, ये गाना जो है is actually a song from the movie I told you, Hitchki, and इसका music जो है is Jasleen Royale, and also lyrics by Raj Shekhar Bhajan, and voice, of course, you recognize the voice, don't you? This is Arijit Singh's voice from the movie Hitchki, a beautiful movie about a teacher who actually practiced some time ago, not a new concept, in the 80s, something like that, differentiated teaching. Enjoy कीजिएगा, we'll be back right after this.
रटी रटाई सारी छोड़ो भी दुनियादारी बागी तेवर जो तेरे बोलेंगे सब अनारी सबको मनाने की तेरी नहीं जिम्मेदारी ऊंचे आसमानों पे लिख दे तू हिस्सेदारी खोल दे पर खोल दे पर खोल दे पर खोल दे पर खोल दे पर
And of course, बचन पर तो खोल देंगे हम लोग बचन, लेकिन अभी हम लोग अखबार खोलने वाले हैं, मतलब आपको न्यूज देने वाले बचन और व्हाट्स हैपनिंग अराउंड द वर्ल्ड, एंड फालतूवाड़ी की तरफ जाएंगे बचन. दैट इज आवर न्यूज डेस्क ऑफ मीडिया महिमा टॉकिंग टू यू अबाउट व्हाट्स हैपनिंग अराउंड द वर्ल्ड. फालतूवाड़ी, टेक इट अवे.
You know that we've been talking in world news for the past few days about the outrage over the Belarusian plane, right? The air piracy that happened, which was actually
Okay, first clarify people, what is air piracy?
air piracy is where a state uses. Basically, pirates in the sea are people who will come and who will take over
By force.
Yeah, by force. The
Yeah.
same thing. The air piracy is. There was this defense aircraft that actually rerouted.
So basically, fighter jets actually escorted a passenger plane.
Yeah.
To be grounded, as in they brought it down to
Yeah.
the thing and boarded and took on a person from there. They removed a person, right? A
Correct.
journalist, supposedly who was talking against the regime.
Yeah, who was speaking up against the Belarusian regime. So there's been outrage, but
I'll tell you one thing, Braja. I'll tell you here's my conspiracy theory, Fadlan.
Huh.
In the perspective of Belarusians, that was an act of war against themselves, right? It was an act of terrorism. But our perspective, media is telling us it's piracy.
really?
Hello, excuse me, they're flying over the airspace of Belarus.
You could. They're not flying over. He was flying out of Belarus.
Well,
they made him come back.
They were in the airspace of Belarus. That's why they were able to deploy the aircrafts, right? Like how we
Yes, but
have
he was a Belarusian. He was.
Yeah, man. So what I'm saying, according to the Belarusian government, they are right because they are trying to national security issue for them. You think in US is not going to do that over here? If at all something happened here in the land of the US?
Do you think they would like?
Of course they would.
Nah,
They created Guantanamo Bay just
for
investigating
speaking up against the regime.
Oh
God.
Trust me, Guantanamo Bay was an example. We should learn from all these things. But anyway, the point is, media, how it actually constitutes and tries to send a message to people, propaganda. So you got to dig deeper, understand what's happening there, Rajan. Yeah, it's easy to say, oh, well, those piracy, you know. I'm not saying that what you're saying. You're reporting, Falguni, I understand. I'm not saying that you're making the news. You're reporting the news to people.
No, but seriously, that scares me, Alto Baba, that you think that it was okay for the government to pull the aircraft down if the guy was...
I said in the perspective of the government, Falguni, people should look in all perspectives. Right? That's what they're trying to say,
so
right?
Then, well, yeah, that's a debate we need to have one day. Is it okay for in the perspective of the government to be able to suppress freedom of speech?
Let me also understand one thing. That particular Belarus is not a democratic country. Let's go with that.
It is a communist country, right?
Yeah,
It? Is it? No.
It is run by a monarch, right? By a person who calls himself a dictator and everything.
Is he?
President or whatever you call it.
No, he's supposedly democratically
Yeah,
elected.
like
Lukashenko.
for Democrat like in China.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, China, Russia, Russia and Belarus. Rings a
Could
bell?
be that because it is part of the Soviet
Allies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So anyway, let's tell you that another ally that they have found is in Turkey, because Turkey apparently pushed the NATO allies into softening their outrage over the Belarus plane. Diplomats are saying Turkey pushed NATO allies into watering down an official reaction to the forced landing by Belarus of a passenger plane and the detention of a dissident journalist on Sunday. Two diplomats familiar with the matter told Reuters. And what's new that we expect of Turkey? Wasn't it in Turkey
Yeah,
that
you're right.
Jamal Khashoggi was
Yes.
cut to bits?
Yes.
Pieces, cut into pieces.
Okay, don't try to emphasize further. Yes, it is true, and those are all the regimes who actually. That's why I said democracy actually is a danger right now, because even our Republicans are got tired of democracy. They don't want democracy anymore. US, you look it out. They want to abolish freedom of thing. They want to make sure that everybody has the right to own arms, right? All those things. They're going towards anarchy more than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. So, NATO's 30 allies released a 2-paragraph statement on Wednesday condemning the forcing down of the Ryanair flight to arrest journalist Roman Protasevich, but did not include any punitive steps that Baltic allies and the Poland had pressed for. The statement was also less strident than NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg's public remarks. He called the incident a state hijacking and outrageous. No relation to reality. Remember yesterday I shared about how UK Prime Minister Johnson's ex-aide made all these claims that Johnson was saying that he will get injected with this, and just to prove to people and all that stuff that the coronavirus is just not so. I mean, they're making a big hoo-ha about nothing. Well, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has responded, and today brushed aside allegations from his former chief aide that his failings had caused tens of thousands of unnecessary deaths from COVID-19, saying some of the commentary bore no relation to reality. Dominic Cummings, who was Johnson's right-hand man until late last year, delivered a withering attack on his former boss during 7 hours of testimony before a parliamentary committee on Wednesday, casting Johnson as an incompetent, disorganized and unfit prime minister. With almost 128,000 deaths, the United Kingdom has the world's 5th highest official COVID-19 total, far higher than the government's initial worst-case estimates of 20,000. Cummings said that the government's ineptitude and delay had led to many more deaths, but of course, our dear UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has just brushed it off, saying it's not in any way in touch with reality. Syrian opposition leader says Assad's election to worsen the country's plight, a sham election designed to prolong President Bashar al-Assad's grip on Syria, shows that only international pressure for a UN-backed peace plan can pave the way for democratic rule, a Damascus-based secular opposition leader said. Lawyer Hassan Abdul Azim of the National Coordination Committee for the Democratic Change added that Wednesday's vote would only worsen the plight of a country already afflicted by hunger, poverty, and an authoritarian regime. This insistence on clinging to power does not bring stability, Abdul Azim told Reuters in a phone interview, referring to acute fuel and food shortages and skyrocketing inflation that has pushed most Syrians deeper into poverty. And speaking of authoritarian regimes, Vanajan, the Chinese embassy in the United States says politicizing COVID-19 origins hampers investigations. So, politicizing the origins of COVID-19 would hamper further investigations and undermine global efforts to curb the pandemic, China's U.S. embassy said after President Joe Biden ordered a review of intelligence about where the virus emerged. The embassy in Washington said in a statement on its website on Wednesday evening, some political forces have been fixated on political manipulation and the blame game. And in news from India, Bandhajan, this is really sad because, there is a severe burnout and depression amongst traumatized doctors all over India. What is happening there is basically that after a terrifying month that saw a COVID-19 overwhelm the country's run-down healthcare system, doctors and nurses on the pandemic frontline say they were pushed into mental and physical exhaustion as they fought to keep their patients alive. Maushami Das had to treat her own mother in a Calcutta hospital as countless patients, including a colleague's father, died around her, working 48 hours at a stretch, sometimes without a break. She had one message for the government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi: "We are exhausted, we are frustrated, and we are depressed." Das said over the phone, her voice breaking with fatigue. "Please see us, please hear us. If you don't listen to doctors, nurses, and staff working on the ground, you will never be able to improve the health infrastructure." She's not alone. Bloomberg spoke to a dozen doctors who described the nightmare scenario: continued high risk exposure to the virus, a never ending flow of patients and deaths, and long hours in sweat drenched PPE kits that made even washroom breaks difficult. It's leading to burnout, anxiety, and insomnia among a large number of India's 1.3 million doctors and complicates the fight to contain the world's worst coronavirus outbreak. More than 1,200 doctors have lost their lives so far in a country that's reported nearly 27 million COVID-19 cases, according to a toll maintained by the Indian Medical Association. One of the biggest issues is that the Indian healthcare system is chronically underfunded, and they're saying that there has to be a revamp, and there has to be something that has, in fact, the health sector of India was ranked 110 amongst 141 countries, behind Bangladesh even.
I really hope they don't actually follow suit of what's happening here in America. America already healthcare system is broken. I would urge the government of India to actually look towards Canada and other places to understand how they can actually try to build a better health system.
Yes, but Altibaba, that there's downsides to everything, right? Even in Canada, we everywhere I'm reading, right? I'm seeing that people are, because of the fact that it's a social, it's a welfare system. Many people are denied care. They're not even allowed to come into the hospital because it's free. Everything is free, and people are not even being given diagnosis or prognosis of what their conditions are. They could be critical conditions, but they're saying stay home, and they're not. They're all waitlisted.
Yeah, and of course, nothing is perfect, is what they say.
Yeah.
It's about trying to see how we can awaken our inner human being.
Yeah, but the good thing is in India, one good news that's coming out is it looks like India is on the downswing of the second wave. And the trend may hold if curbs are eased, says the government at this particular point in time. And of course, the Indian government has blasted the New York Times report on India's COVID toll. And they're saying that it's based on distorted estimates, and it's absolutely false. If you want to catch up on that, you can go to mediamahima.com. That's all we have time for on this morning's Good Morning Babe and Jen. We'll be back tonight live at 5 on the Pam Pam Show. Don't forget to tune in then for another exciting edition. Tab tak ke liye, enjoy yourselves. Khol de bar and fly away.
Hi guys, this is Shraddha and you're listening to Radio D Hottie, where the entertainment gets hotter.